right, we'll go ahead and get rolling because I said I'm not the keeper of Mr. J and Mr. Bass, but I will be helping be the keeper of time, and it's 10 o'clock, and so Dr. Cupman will appreciate if we start on time. Absolutely. So I'll go ahead and just, if y'all are ready, we'll go ahead and get started with today, June 12th, 2024, meeting of the Curriculum and Instruction Committee. We have no one signed up for public comment. In terms of my board member comments, I'll just say it's always a delight to be here. And this is what, as Dr. Cupman and I were just talking about, it's not one of the areas that are really complaint driven. It's we get to really just see what is at the heart of what we do in FCPS. So I want to thank everyone in advance for all that you do to help ensure our students are successful. So with that, today's agenda items are things that are really important and what I'm looking forward to learning more about from a variety of lenses and hats that I wear with community schools and equity curriculum. So but we will be wrapped up as quickly as we can. I'll be sensitive to the time and with that, I'll kick off to Dr. Cupman to take over.
Yeah, so thank you, Ms. Johnson. Welcome, everyone. I'm Kevin Cupman. I'm the Chief Academic Officer here. We have two presentations you mentioned, community schools, which is not a new phenomenon nationally, but is a new driver under the blueprint. And we're very excited about the work that's occurring here in Frederick County. And then we're going to talk a little bit about high quality curriculum materials and an equity-based approach to that. So I'm going to turn it over and introduce Dr. Deveda Coley, who is our community schools guru here. And I'll let her introduce her team, and then she's going to go ahead and roll. And I want to thank Dr. Gall for doing the clicking over there. So just let her know when you need a slide advance, please.
All right, thank you so much. It's always a joy to talk about community schools. I'd like to introduce Courtney Roback, who is our community coordinator at Waverly Elementary School. And I have Misty Sanson, who is our budget associate for community schools, and McKinney-Vento as well, in case we have any budget questions that we had. Go ahead and switch that slide. We always like to begin with our vision. We use this to drive all of our decisions, and I'm looking through our presentation, you'll see where we're working to do these things. And so we truly, through community school work, are committed to embracing our communities and also empowering our stakeholders. We want to make sure that we're expanding our opportunities, and we are always, as we are always doing with everything here in Frederick County, ensuring equity and academic excellence for every child every day. And so you'll see these things rolling through as we talk through many things today. I wanted to talk about the what and the why, and I want to go ahead and start with why. And as I said, really the root of community schools is that we're really looking to remove barriers, provide opportunities, ensure access, so that we're ensuring that we have an equitable and high quality education for all students. It really comes down to ensuring that our students have the benefit of being able to access the great things that are happening in our schools. And so through our community school work, we work to evaluate what are the things that we need to do, how can we provide things so that our students can do that, and what kind of barriers do we need to remove and make that school the hub of the community so that students can achieve. So what is a community school is, it really is an asset-based approach. We do what's called an asset needs assessment, and we really look at what are the assets in our community and how can we leverage them to really meet the needs of our students and our families. We also then look to see what are the needs and then how can we use those assets in our community to be able to meet those needs. It really is transformative, and it's really looking to transform the school as a whole and really thinking through a different lens of how we can bring in and really have those collaborative partnerships. But then it also can transform the community, because it really allows the school to be a place where families and the community feel safe and can go there and know that we have access to things that they may need. We do that by leveraging partnerships, and we really work collaboratively with staff, with our families, with our students, and the community to ensure that we are meeting those needs and really providing the things that are needed in our schools so that students can achieve. And it really does contribute to improve student learning and development. We are looking at ways that we can, and we'll talk about some of the different things that we may bring in or different partnerships that we will leverage that really can contribute to the well-being of our students and our staff and our community. And as I said before, the school really becomes the hub, and we really look at this through a hands-up approach. We know that students and families may not always be in our community, and so not only do we bring things and provide education and provide opportunities, but also we help families to figure out how to navigate the system and also where the resources are in the community, so that if the school wasn't there or they were somewhere else, they also would know how to get those resources. There are 6 key practices, and these key practices really drive everything that we do. We put things in through budget. We justify it through these key practices, and then also the wraparound services that we're going to be talking about later. And so one of those key practices is collaborative leadership, shared power, and voice. And that is a huge part. As I said, we have to know, we have to get that feedback. We do a needs assessment by doing interviews, focus groups, constantly talking with our stakeholders to be able to figure out what is it that we need to do collectively to make sure that every child gets what they need every day. And so we do have a family involvement or family engagement council at every school, and that's part of Blueprint, where we have family involvement that also includes community members that we talk with and partners that we have as well, to be able to look at our community school goals and be able to talk about, are we meeting the mark or not? Do we need to make adjustments? Who can we bring in? And constantly collaborating. We also have expanded and enriched learning opportunities. And when we talk about CNI, this is where we can help to contribute and expand what's going on in the classroom, providing field trips, providing STEAM and STEM opportunities, being able to extend by providing additional summer school opportunities or additional hours outside of school in a different way than maybe what we're doing in the classroom. And so it's allowing a lot of these extended and enriched learning opportunities, which our students otherwise may not have been able to access. We also have rigorous community-centered instruction. And so we certainly have and can extend on and provide some additional learning opportunities or learning materials that schools may need. We do have, for example, in one of our schools, we have a health teacher. And so that is in our elementary school, something that's very different and unique. And so we'll be able to provide that on a daily basis, a weekly basis for every child, as well as learning activities and materials to support that. And so we really look at what's the need and how can we fit the need of that community and provide instructional materials along with that. Also, a culture of belonging and safety. We know that's the core. Kids and students and staff don't feel safe, learning's not going to happen. And so this is a huge part of where we're looking at ways that we can continue to do that, whether it's training, whether it is providing materials such as cones or signage or things of that sort, to make sure that people can navigate and feel safe and know that they have a sense of belonging in our school. Also, integrated system of supports, and these are our outside resources. These are our many partnerships that we have that we leverage to be able to meet our needs, whether that's we have things with mental health organizations. We have partnerships with some of our multilingual organizations that provide resources to that targeted population, or help to provide parent empowerment groups or power engagement groups so that they can navigate the systems. Lots of different ways, and we'll talk about that. Courtney will talk a little bit more about some of those integrated systems of supports when she is speaking. And then last but certainly not least, powerful student and family engagement. We really are focused on student voice and ensuring that our students have a voice in what's happening in our schools. They are a part of our needs assessment, constantly a part of who we are talking to and getting ideas of what's needed in our schools, as well as our families and our community, and how can we engage them. We are really taking a deep dive in as community schools about what is appropriate first-class family engagement, and what does that look like, and how do we plan well for it, and how do we make sure then that it's not just this one evaluation, but we're checking back a couple weeks later, that we're targeting. We look at our family engagement and we look at it and we disaggregate the data, and we see, okay, we have this neighborhood of people who aren't coming. What's the barrier there? How can we get them here? What's holding them up for being a part of things? And going out and then problem solving and solution finding. And so that engagement we know is so important, and that's a huge component of our community school practices. As you know, I'm sure you've seen lots of the videos and lots of information about how community schools are directly related to Pillar 4. As we know, this is a Maryland initiative that is funded through Blueprint. And the whole goal and premise of Pillar 4 is providing more supports to students who need it the most. And so certainly the strategies and the things that we are doing in community schools are providing the support to our students that are in our community schools. And we'll talk about how they're identified in a minute here. We also wanted to make sure that we explain the fact that our community schools are directly aligned with all 5 of our goals. When we looked at the 5 goals and looked at our key practices, looked at our wraparound services and the things that we are doing, some of those key practices fit under every single goal. And so all of our work is directly related and is providing momentum for us to meet our school goals in our community schools. We certainly are definitely integrated. Our implementation plans are written based on our needs assessments, as I talked about before, which are based on information from all of our stakeholders. And then those implementation plans have goals that are lead the work of our community coordinators. Those implementation plans are directly related, those goals, into our school improvement plan, which of course are then directly related to our goals. And so all of our work goes through and is connected to all 5 of our county goals. And so we wanted to talk a little bit about our current and expanded program. Did we become community schools? How do we have them? And then where do we see ourselves going? And so as I talked about, the funding for community schools comes through Blueprint. And so we do have 2 types of funding that come through the concentration of poverty grants. The first is our personnel grant. And so the personnel grant is granted in the first year. And the way that we get identified is based on the 3-year average of free reduced meals. And so they look at our free reduced meal average, they looked at the 3-year average of that. And then if the 3-year average in this year was 55% or higher, then a school was deemed a community school. We'll talk about how many schools that we have coming on. We're very excited to have some schools coming on this year. And that is because they had this 3-year average of 55%. As you see in 2024, it was 60% or higher. And what they did is they had a 5% decline each year and then stopping at 55. So at this point, any school that has a 3-year average of 55% or higher in Maryland will become a community school. And so with that, the funding will pay for a community coordinator and a community school nurse. And so every school, community school gets those 2 positions. And so you'll hear a little bit from Courtney, who's done a fantastic job in serving in the role of our community coordinator, about the work that they do. And really our community coordinator is the one that does this needs assessment, does the rights implementation plan, and then uses that to lead all of the work that he or she does. And then along with that community coordinator is our community school nurse. And our community school nurse we have a great partnership with the health department, and our community school nurse works hand in hand with our community coordinator to ensure that we are providing wellness information, that we are making sure that our students are immunized, that we're sending back those health forms, getting information and getting wellness information out to our families. They are also participants in many of our academic meetings, so they are there when we're looking at figuring out what's going on with attendance. They're there to help solution find, and so our community school nurses are great hand in hand with our community coordinator to help ensure that all of our students are accessing everything that they need in our schools. The second pot of money that we get is our per pupil grant. And so this money pays for the work. And so this allows us to, once we've written those goals in that first year, we're doing our needs and asset needs assessment and figuring out what we're doing. We're also looking to craft our implementation plan. This money helps us to put our plan in place. Now, I will say though, Waverly didn't have money for many years, and even without money, you can do the work, but with this per pupil allocation, you have money also where you can do a lot of innovative things. And so there are 13 different wraparound services, which is another thing for everything that we purchase, everything that we do, that we look to make sure there is an alignment. And I've listed some of those there, which lead the decisions that we're using as to what we're purchasing. So behavioral health, attendance, extended learning opportunities, so being able to extend the day or go into the summer, improving the learning environment, ensuring that we have physical wellness for our students, and making sure that we have social workers or mentors for students who might need it, and then providing vision dental services. You heard about our Vision to Learn that we did last year. We're looking to bring something else here that can use something similar or be able to have Vision to Learn. So we're still working on that. We were able to help 251 of our students be able to see through that program. And so we certainly know that having students see helps them to be able to achieve. And so those are the kinds of things that wraparound services help to provide and that we use this funding for that we get from the state to pay for. As you see on the chart to the right there, you see it declining by 5% again. And just like our personnel grant, the per pupil grant declines as well to just phase it in. And so this year, schools that have an average of 70% or higher 3-year average of free and reduced meals will be able to get money that they'll be able to use to do these wraparound services. As I mentioned, Waverly was in a situation that they didn't get it, and we do have schools like Monocacy, that's also a community school right now, that will not get this per pupil grant this year. Waverly will get this year. We're very excited. But we have schools that second year and beyond may not get this until they get to that percentage. As you see in 2027, it'll be 55%. So every school that second year would get money. But it's right now, not every school will get money that second year. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Roback to talk about our schools.
Thanks, Dr. Foley. So I am the proud community school coordinator at Waverly Elementary School. And we started the community school implementation model with 4 different schools. That was Butterfly Ridge Elementary, Waverly Elementary, Lincoln Elementary, and Hillcrest Elementary. This past year, we were happy to bring on Monocacy Elementary School, and then going into next school year, 24-25, we are very excited to bring on some of our middle school partners. That's Crestwood Middle School, Monocacy Middle School, West Frederick, and the Heather Ridge School as well. And so we are pumped to be able to serve 5,951 students under the community school implementation model for next year. So implementation within all of our buildings, first and foremost, looks like leveraging our partnerships to meet our goals. Our partners and a holistic approach to student achievement and well-being is really the heart of our community schools work. And so we're proud to say that as community schools, we have 101 active partnerships at this time. And we're always looking to expand those efforts. But what I really want to share is that more is not always better. And so it's very important that under the community school model and within our implementation plan that we're very strategic with the partners that we select. And we think about reciprocal partnerships as well as being able to meet the needs of students and their families as outlined in our implementation plans. And so before I move on to highlight a couple of the different things that we're doing to address our system goals, I want to talk a little bit about our partnerships and the work that we've done. So Dr. Foley talked a little bit about Vision to Learn. Vision to Learn was a partnership that was brought to Waverly Elementary School in Hillcrest. And we were able to equip about 300 students with access to eyeglasses. Some of our students for the very first time said, I can see, and I can see what's happening on the board with being able to sit at different places in the classroom. And so that was eye-opening to us as educators and to our staff that vision services were seen as a luxury within our community. It's the same for dental care. A lot of times that is seen as a luxury. And so that is the place that we're really trying to hone in on going into this next school year and really looking for those types of partnerships. The next partnership that I want to talk about is I-9 Sports. And so when we think about the community school model, we really have to think a little bit differently than how traditional school has been viewed before. And that goes all the way down to use of facilities. And so we've done a lot of work with Paul Lebo to think about how do we protect our community? How do we prioritize our fields at our schools to be able to serve the students within our community. And so we're happy to say that we've partnered with I-9 Sports to be able to prioritize students participating in extracurricular activities and being involved after the school day ends. Additionally, we've partnered with Centro Espanol with a program called Exito. And this program is amazing because what it does is it provides STEAM and social emotional learning to our students with providing social emotional learning and parenting opportunities for parents and families. And so it's side-by-side learning happening. And while students are participating in their activities and their extracurriculars, parents are participating as well. We've also partnered with Frederick Community College. I am so proud to say that Waverly's doors open first thing in the morning, and they don't close with people being in and happenings happening until about 9:30 at night. And so Frederick Community College provides adult literacy classes to our community 4 nights a week at our school. And then lastly, I want to talk a little bit about United Way. United Way is a partnership that we have that not only provides resources to our students and families, such as Chromebooks and supplies, but they also provide adult education. And so again, whenever we go back and we think about the hub of our community, it's not just Waverly families and parents that benefit from the work that we're doing. We're very strategic with opening up partnership opportunities to our entire community and really seeing our school as that hub of the community and a place that you can go to be able to have different things to access. So we talked a little bit about the benefits of the community school model. And so before I go into sharing a little bit of data with you, and it's a small snapshot, I do want to kind of highlight a little bit of the work that we're doing under each of the system goals. So when we think about goal number 1, I want to highlight the fact that under our concentration of poverty grant, we're able to provide instructional resources and purchase instructional resources that really hone in on students' social skills development, as well as some programming directly aligned to health and wellness. When we look under goal number 2, community schools are really able to provide a unique staffing model outside of that we might see in a traditional school. Some of those examples are full-time health education specialists, bilingual receptionists, full-time people personnel workers, and school psychologists. When we look at goal number 3, safety and well-being, again, that concentration of poverty funding allows us to purchase both human and physical resources directly related to safety and well-being. And so that could look like first aid kits, but it also looks like cones at our car rider lines to be able to really provide some of that first class experience that we talked about. We joke at Waverly that we run our car rider line like Chick-fil-A. You're in and you're out, and parents really appreciate that. And so it's some of that funding that you're able to then put back into your school to be able to provide that first class experience. Dr. Foley talked a lot about goal number 4 and stakeholder engagement and feedback. Community schools develop a comprehensive needs assessment and then also an implementation plan that we are proud to say we embed within the school improvement process. And so when we're able to share out with our staff and the efforts that we're doing to both our staff and our community, those 2 processes are embedded within each other. And then lastly, we really do pride ourselves within the community school model of providing that first class engagement and experiences. And that's both academic and enrichment opportunities. And so again, we don't feel within the community school model that things like health and dental and really having that Chick-fil-A experience should be saved for a certain group of people. We think that everyone that comes through our building and all of our students deserve that best experience, and so that's what we look to do and support goal number 5 as well.
I'm sorry, go back to the attendance goal, sorry.
And so I just wanted to leave you with a little piece of information and some data before I hand it back over to Dr. Foley. And that's over the last 2 years, all community schools have seen a double-digit increase with students not chronically absent. And so I think that goes to speak about our holistic approach in supporting students, removing barriers, and then really being able to implement that community school model. And I do want to give a shout out to Butterfly Ridge, who actually surpassed the county average for students not chronically absent over the last 2 years.
Well, I was just saying to Mr. Murphy, that's an impressive set of data there across all of the schools. One of the things we've heard in national news is students not returning to school after COVID, and that being a real crisis in places. And so it's excellent to see that these schools have made these gains. So kudos to their entire teams. Yeah.
So what are some of the next steps that we have? And so one of the things that we're seeing is increased accountability to the state. So we'll have a lot more data to be sharing and things of that sort. There are very clear guidelines now as to what kind of data that we're looking at, which includes increase in volunteers. What are the different ways that we are engaging with partners and making sure that we are documenting those, continuing to look at attendance. And so we are really going to be talking through our work group. We have a community school work group about how we're going to integrate these mandated data measures that we're going to be looking at and what other that we want to look at within our county. And so we'll be able to report back on those things. We are also going to be continuing to create resources to inform stakeholders about partners. One of the things that came from our asset needs assessment was that partners said, we want time to be able to collaborate with each other so that we can work together to work and help you. And so we have really worked to provide opportunities for that to happen. This year we had 3 times where we pulled all of our community partners together, shared our community goals, talked about strategies that we could do to increase and work together. And it's been exciting to see some of our partners working together now, putting programs together to be able to service our students. We've also done a series where we have pulled our partners in and done Google Meet and recorded it so that they can tell about their partnerships, and then we're making that available to everyone in FCPS so that we can, throughout the county, make sure that we know the partners and partnerships in our school system and be able to leverage them not only in our community schools, but also in our other schools as well. We'll continue to do training and make sure that our experiences for families are first class, that we are really strategic with our planning, and that we are reaching out to families who, for some reason, for some barrier, are not engaging. And so we are really looking to continue that, really come together and collaborate on strategies and continue doing training and conversation on that family engagement. As she shared, we're excited to have 4 new schools coming on. I met with our middle school principals and Heather Ridge principal yesterday to really talk about what does the role look like and how are we setting up our structures to set them up for success. And then in July, we'll be meeting with each individual school to really talk about the rollout of our community schools strategy in those schools. And so we will continue to do that onboarding and training, and so excited that our current community coordinators will be working to really provide collaboration and support to our new community coordinators who are coming in. And then we will continue to expand understanding of the strategy and vision through by ourselves. We're doing book studies, reading, learning, and taking classes. MSCE has been a great support in providing training for us, but then also allowing others to understand that and understand that strategy, and just providing that support. We're very excited. Our administrator, Julie Ivins and Courtney, are going to be presenting on June June 25th, to MSDE and district leaders throughout the state about their partnership and the great things that they're doing with partnerships in schools. And so we have had many of our community school FCPS staff presenting around the state and doing things in meetings as well, where they are doing exceptional work. And it's exciting to see all that our team is doing. And we want to share that. And these strategies are not just for schools that are funded through community schools. You know, this kind of thinking, the strategy is something that we want to continue to share and expand throughout the county, because this way of thinking and strategy can be done, as Courtney said, without the funding. So, any kind of questions, discussions? Anything you'd like to talk about further?
Sure. First of all, did have communication that Mr. Bass is celebrating a holy day today, and Mr. J is giving finals. So they had sent that email last night, but I was at the county council meeting and I didn't check email. So I think it's a wonderful presentation, and I have a few questions. One is, what's the relationship if we are providing funding for school-based nurses? It's my understanding that was like a service that we received from the health department. So how does that work?
Sure. So this is an add-on. So we still have the health department partnership, the original staffing of the health tech, and we also have a school nurse. And what we do in our community schools is we have what's called a delegating nurse. And that delegating nurse partners with 2 of our community schools, and they work with those 2 schools, and that person has oversight over the health tech. So it's still the same model that we have in every school. This community school nurse is an additional nurse. And so this nurse is able to, like I said, attend meetings, be able to really make phone calls and try to get chip cards. Like, they're really working to do some of the community things. They also, as is mandated in the legislation, they have to attend before and after school events that are coordinated by our coordinators. And so they attend. And so that delegating nurse helps them too, so that they can have a flexible schedule to be able to be there to provide the information and access to our families at those different community school events also.
So they work in partnership with the.
You got it. There's a team of 3. Exactly. There's a team of 3 that work together. Absolutely.
Okay.
And they're really able to take on a lot of case management that sometimes would fall through the cracks. For example, we had a student who was unable to get a prescription filled. And so they were able to talk with the doctor's office. They were able to talk with the insurance company, and then they were able to then find a pharmacy who actually had the generic medication in stock. And then the student had a turnaround time of having their medication within 48 hours instead of within weeks. And so they're able to take on a lot of case management work.
Okay. That's useful to know. So on the funding, I guess the one of the concerns I think we have on the perspective of the Board of Education is this idea of unfunded mandates. You know, we're required to do X, Y, and Z, and then not getting like the appropriate funding for it. So as you can see, the programs and services that we're having to cut right now. What you said the funding came for Waverly. So forgive me if I don't know the details. Was it supposed to have come earlier and then it just lagged? I'd like to know the financial landscape of this.
So it's based on the free and reduced meal numbers that are reported. There was a year that free reduced meal applications weren't in at the highest level because the school was had school-wide meals for every child for lunch and breakfast. And so based on that, the numbers were lower, which then it was very low because forms were not necessarily turned in, and that percentage that was turned in was very low. So that dropped their average, and so they weren't able to get up to the average that they really were as far as their free and reduced meals.
And that really is every principal and their team really work with their families to have students complete those forms. because it's a great service for students. But when a school has had school-wide, and parents haven't had to fill out that form for a long
Yes.
time, then that school-wide is removed. Now you have to kind of reteach the community that we need to complete the forms to get that percentage to where it reflects what's actually happening in the community. So, and I think we've had a couple of, I know one time Lincoln was school-wide as well, and I don't know if they still are, but when they come off of that, then you have to get the applications back out. And then, so there is funding that comes, concentration of poverty grants are specifically funded. The personnel grants are direct funding from the state for this. So in this particular area of the blueprint, we have seen the dollars come in, similar to what we've seen in pre-K expansion.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yes.
So with respect to where we're going and on the partnerships, how does the solicitation work? Do we go and find partners, or do we cast a net and hope partners come to us? Like, I'd like to know a little bit more about that process of cultivating partnerships.
Sure. So we do. We reach out to partners. Like I said, I've been holding meetings, putting out invitations. I've gone through many of the directories that are out there to reach out to a wide net of partners and say, hey, come on, find out about community schools. Let's see if you can help us meet some of our needs. Also every community school coordinator really looks at the needs, and then we do an asset mapping process as part of our needs assessments, and we actually dig in, look at Google Maps, see what the businesses are, kind of really look and hone in to see what kind of needs that we might have in businesses or organizations that we might not be using or to leverage and be able to get partnerships. I've also said to partners who have come, hey, if you know another partner, bring them on. I also attend community fairs. We are all out in the community attending different fairs or things that are there, so we can find out about the different organizations. We also have the RFQ that I know is going to be coming back up for enrichment services pretty soon. That we got approved.
What's a Q?
I'm not sure what the Q is for. I'm sorry. It is
request for something. I use RFP or
yeah. It's RFQ, but I'm not sure what the Q stands for. It is for the extended and enriched services. And so we had that for community schools to be able to provide enrichment services for any organizations that wanted to apply. And that's that they would be doing services for 3 days, at least 3 days a week, at least 2 hours after school. We have just gone through an application process. We're going to be adding some very exciting partners with your approval to our list of vendors that our community schools can pull from. And so that's going to be on our community school because it's going to be an open enrollment, so we can have partners come in that want to come under that RFQ as well and be a part of our community school pieces. So we are always open for suggestions of ways to get more partnerships and ways to enhance the partnerships that we have. But we work really, really hard to identify those areas and then do research to determine who's out there that we can get to help us.
Request for quote.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, I don't know. We just use RFQ. I should have been asking what that meant, but.
As long as you get what you need, Deveda, that's all.
Yes.
So looking at that data, the chronic absenteeism data, and in particular, I think it's nearly a 20% increase on Butterfly Ridge. I mean, if it was like 70 to 90. And I have to say, having been there a few times, it is one of my favorite schools to go visit just because of the culture and atmosphere and engagement and the love you feel in the hallways there. I mean, really, that model, I would go to school there. And the other activities that I see going on in the school, I wonder how much of that is related to it being a community school. Like they have extra, like the STEM track, like a car racing, STEM-based thing up in the hallway. And I'm sorry, I can't recall. It's a racetrack. It's got cars on it. Like, what kid wouldn't want to come and learn about whatever? fluid dynamic, whatever it is you learn. And then they had a little bit of I don't know if it was hydroponics. It might have been hydroponics. Gardening. Yeah. And then the interaction that they have, like even the lunchtime is pleasant and friendly. I mean, I've gone to have lunch with my son and it's like controlled chaos. But there it just seems like they come down and they eat and they have the students that perhaps there might be in the Learning from Life program at Frederick come over and they help with, the students are learning how to recycle their food waste. And I just think like this from that social, being good citizens and socially engaged at that young age is just critical. So I think there's so many things that are working right there that I would love to see implemented across all of our schools.
Yeah.
Like how do we do that? Like this is a real special model and
Sure.
it provides so much, but even some of that culture, maybe if you're not getting the funding for the extra nursing, and just even the school event where the students and families left with a bag of produce, like,
Absolutely.
because I wouldn't say it's quite a food desert out that way, but it's just, again, like, it was so nice to see that.
Yeah, well, and I think
So-
this goes back to what Dr. Coley, she only said it very briefly, but these schools are designed to become the hub of the community. And that isn't just like a place you go and be busy at, but a place where you have the sense of belonging and, that we can look to the school as our allies and raising our children and being a part of it. And that's why the term community school is used, because it's supposed to build that sense of community. And I will tell you, I've worked in similar schools. It was South Frederick, which is now Lincoln at the time. And a lot of credit has to go to every individual staff member in those buildings who care about kids and spend a little extra time and engage with all these activities. That really does build this sense of belonging for students, and that's from the school administrator through the staff, the support staff that are in there, the bus drivers in that group, principals, and those staffs really coalesce around the mission of helping all students, every child, every day. And so these are just, now that there's these additional set of services and these partnerships, is really moving that to the next level. And I've always felt that Frederick County has some of the greatest school cultures. But you're right, we can learn from this experience into schools that we don't have some of these resources. So it's an exciting time. I think this was probably one of the strongest components of the blueprint as to get to this world-class education that the state's trying to do.
One of the things I'm working on as a class too, and the family engagement, is thinking through this community school lens. So, because I do agree, I feel like thinking this way and using the strategy can be implemented much more widespread. And I think if you find that some of our schools are, I know some of the principals and things are doing some of these things in their buildings. And so I do think that some of this work is happening throughout the county, but certainly want to spread it and, be thinking through this community school strategy because it's good everywhere. And I think the nice thing about our community schools is we have a person designated to integrate it and make sure that it happens, right? And be able to do the work that's associated with it. And I think that's the difference that really gets to elevate it.
Well, as long as the funding continues, I've been pretty upset by the things that the decisions we're having to make. And I was thinking, if this is how we're going to get to world-class education, and I'm not running for re-election, I'll be off the board in 6 months because I just feel like we're in a no-win situation with some of our funding issues. So, as long as we're getting funding for this piece, it's like a little bright spot. Again, it's like, CNI lets us see the good work that is going on in schools. And is there any reservation or hesitation about the funding stream? Like, are we guaranteed that this is going to keep coming?
I've not seen anything personally that says that spigot's going to be turned off. I know that the budget situation in the out years in the state's pretty
This is bleak.
challenging, so I think it's one of those that we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because it's one of those things. It's like having a nice computer. Like if you go from something ordinary, and then you have a big monitor and a fast computer, and then you're asked to go back to something.
Right.
It's like, you don't want to do it. You just can't go back. And I would hate to like have an environment like this for our students and then take away. And I guess, again, maybe with some of the recent decision making we've been having to take on, I feel like we've been able to provide things that we're taking away. And so I'm like really, really concerned about the potential of any of this going away, because students are gonna rely on it, and we rely on it, you know. And I know when we went to try to preserve Sevillesville Elementary School to become the charter school so that it could have the enrollment, that was one of the big driving factors, was that school is a hub of that community. And so they are a community school without having that title. And so and there's practices that go on in there. So I think, how can we like tie this up and package it and give like almost like a toolkit to ensure that all of are you doing this? Like, or how like, can anyone help describe how we can take this model, the parts, the strategies that don't cost money, and incorporate them in as good best practices for other schools? So I know that's not related to community.
I think that's something we can definitely take to our work group and talk about. That's a great suggestion.
I like the idea of a toolkit. That's an interesting way to frame that, because, well, I mean, the fact is, when you start doing this and doing it well, you learn a lot. You learn a lot about how to get in touch with your community and how to identify folks that aren't accessing. And so that group, that common set of experience is a way that they could develop. Okay, this has worked in these places. You could consider trying these at your school as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that sounds
I
great.
think I would love anything that we can do to help systemically. I think would be, wonderful. I don't want to add any work to anyone's plate, or be part of that. I don't think the board as a whole wants to have work. But that was all I had. I really thank you for all you do.
Yeah, Dr. Cole, please send thanks on behalf of the committee to all of your community coordinators
They're
and
a
folks who've
great
been
team.
doing that. Yeah,
Thank
it's great work.
And our principals are such, you can't do this work without very strong principals working with
absolutely.
and guiding our community coordinators, and we have the best. It's been a fantastic. I'm so proud when I go places to talk about the community school strategy that we have going on here.
And I know
A great team.
you just showed one piece of data, but I'm sure there's other data that we can pull
Yes.
as demonstrating the impact.
Especially over time. I think
Yeah.
over time, you're going to
Yes.
continue to see.
Yeah,
So-
that was compelling data that I pulled right there, and I'm trying to figure out, we're gonna work in our work group really, like those other things, but yes, we have lots of that soft data, anecdotes, and, just like we said, the number of students we were able to help with the vision pieces and seeing that need above and beyond the mandated grades that we do the vision screening, being able to do that and being able to provide those right at the school. then Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So my only parting comment is to thank you, Dr. Coley. Dr. Coley and I came into school administration back in the day, assistant principals about the same time. And as much as we would hate to lose her as a school administrator, she really has found a place to lead in the district and is having an amazing impact. So thank you so much for that, bringing all your experience to it. You're doing great work.
Thank you. I've got a great team that's supporting and working with it, and so it makes it an easy and very enjoyable job. I just love it. So thank you for the opportunity to really
Thank you all
enjoy
for
it.
being here.
Thank you so
As I say, you're free to run the plant. So.
Thank you.
The next one. All right. So I'm going to ask Jim Ralston and Michelle Simpson to come to the table. So we're going to switch gears. We're going to talk about equity in curriculum, high quality instructional materials, and how we're using an equity lens for that. One thing I do want you to notice, Ms. Johnson, on the title slide, is that there are actually 4 departments that are listed here. And I think that's very important because we have representation in this work from all 4 departments within the ACTS division that are listed there. One of our mandates from Dr. Marco is always never to work in silos, work across departments, and this is just one example of where we have the opportunity to do that. So we're going to talk about that. We're just going to reintroduce the term high quality instructional materials. This is HQIM is how we say it in short form. But in the blueprint for Maryland's future, there's direction laid out to the State Department of Education to develop rubrics and processes to assist school districts in adopting high quality instructional materials. So in the last few years, we've started to onboard HQMs. Under the Maryland Leads Grant, we actually brought in Into Reading and actually have brought in Open Court as our elementary reading, comprehensive reading programs. In addition, we added grades 3 through 5 mathematics this year, and we'll be onboarding K through 2 next year. We added Reveal Mathematics at grade 6 all the way up through Algebra 2. So these are those high quality textbooks and additional supplemental materials that we're putting in the hands of students and supporting our teachers. Now, the MSDE is continuing to work on the HQIM project because they basically surveyed across the LEAs to see where districts are. And I think Frederick County is actually in a very, very good spot. In fact, our goal is to implement HQIMs in language arts at middle school next year. And so grades 6, 7, and 8, those students will have an HQIM available to them, as well as the teachers who work with them on a day-to-day basis. We have made HQIMs an integrated part of our comprehensive literacy plan and our comprehensive mathematics plan, which is currently being written, but those will be underlying components of that to make sure that we have that. One of the things that the research indicates is that having high quality instructional materials in the hands of students and in the hands of teachers actually increases achievement. It's actually been targeted towards significant gains in achievement. And one of the things we also, of course, is it kind of unifies and makes the student experience very consistent across all of our schools. So that's kind of what those HQIMs are. And go to the next slide. So how do we implement these? We know they're very important. And so the first thing that we typically do is try to get the materials in the hands of teachers as quickly as possible. In fact, Ms. Matheny, who is looking to implement the 6 through 8 ELA next year, has actually started working with literacy specialists, I think in January, right? And those literacy specialists began orienting teachers, and then we try to get the materials at hand as soon as possible. And then we conduct professional learning. We do that. We have our vendors who have subject matter experts come in, they work with our curriculum team or they work with our teachers. We usually touch base on this at our August welcome back for teachers. In October, we do some additional work with that with our early career teachers. And this year, coming year, there's a January professional learning day as well, so that we have multiple touch points for teachers as they get using materials and become comfortable with materials. And in the cases in mathematics and ELA, we want to make sure that the school-based specialists can lead the work. And so our curriculum team will work with them, those specialists throughout the year so they can continue to return to the schools and implement these materials with a great deal of fidelity. Next slide, please. So this leads to the heart of the work that we're going to talk about today is how are high-quality instructional materials implemented for all students. So one of the things that we do, and I actually might ask Ms. Matheny to come up and talk to us a little bit. As you're aware, Ms. Johnson, we've been doing a lot of regulation changes around selection of curriculum materials, approval of curriculum, and we have made some excellent changes to our textbook approval process, where we specifically direct those committees that are evaluating different HQIMs to look at the materials from an equity perspective, from the lens of a student who has disability, from the multilingual learner perspective, because the HQIMs are actually really being designed with all kids in mind, which you might not have said 20 years ago when you started looking at textbooks. So we worked with Dr. Harris and the equity team, and Mr. Murphy and a group got together and made some adjustments to our textbook approval process so that this is done at the approval at the beginning, right? So we look for this in mind. The one thing we also know is these HQIMs are not perfect. And so what we're going to talk about next is in response to the fact that although this is high quality, is well rated by things like EdReports, and the committee loves those materials, they still see things in there that we need to do to make sure that we can reach all of our students. Ms. Medina, you want to top it up real quick? I did want her to talk because she was the curriculum specialist who actually went through the most recent iteration of our textbook approval process. And I wanted her to maybe even show you in these HMH materials that we're looking to implement next year, how we kind of look for these features and supports directly in the materials to be able to support all kids. So do you want to talk about the formation of the committee, the representation of that, how you went through the evaluation process, and what were like some of the features that get to this heart of equity? That'd be great.
Sure, thank you. Good morning. It's a pleasure to speak with you today and sort of share with you behind the curtain of the process. And so the formation of our textbook review committee, you have the rubric template in front of you. This is our recently revised and updated rubric that we use for textbook review. And with the committee work, we really want to make sure that we are representative of all stakeholders. So we have representation from special education, advanced academics, classroom teachers, literacy specialists, multilingual education, et cetera, as well as robust representation from the community. We actually had 4 different community members on our textbook review committee because their insight for their own children's experience is highly valuable. So I tried to just select a random short story out of the 7th grade teachers editions for you in annotated text, save time for us today. You'll see that it speaks directly to supporting various student groups and student needs, every single text provided. So I think on the page you're looking at, you'll see samples of how to support struggling readers, how to support multilingual students. There are also, MCAP style practice assessment questions for students to make sure that we are sustaining that same high level expectation for all students in their achievement as they work through the program. And so I really want to speak to the nature of the excitement from our teachers as well, because as the textbook review process kicked off, we looked at 3 different vendors and teachers were without a doubt most excited about this product. As we've onboarded teachers over the last 4 to 5 months, they are so excited because they feel like this is going to save them time in their planning and preparation to meet the needs of all students in their classrooms. And right now, teachers spend a lot of time collaborating and really thinking about, well, how are we going to do this? And it feels like they're working from scratch every single day. But this gives them an opportunity to sort of raise the floor and have a stronger entry point. And so as we think about the textbook review process, the rubric was highly beneficial to help us make a sound decision when we evaluated each vendor. But I think for the teacher experience, they see the benefit of having everything in one place. And so just in that one short story, it speaks to all different student needs and really helps teachers differentiate faster and more efficiently and effectively because it speaks to the science of reading, the different student groups and student needs, as well as SciOp, which I know the team will speak to you about shortly.
Yeah, and I think the point you made, Ms. Lee, about having the things there for teachers. 15 years ago, a teacher might receive a textbook with a teacher's guide, and it would cover how to cover the content. What it wouldn't do is really highlight how you help all learners. And so teachers would then have to now make modifications or adjustments or create additional materials to be able to meet the needs of all those kids. And if you think about it, Ms. Johnson, we're about 33% of our teachers, if my math is correct there, are early career teachers. And to be faced with a wide range of learners in the classroom, these are the kinds of supports that can help us have them have a very successful start to their career. Not only is that great for the kids who are learning, but it's also excellent for teacher retention, that they can have some balance in planning for instruction because they have those supports already embedded within those materials. So first of all, I want to thank you, Ms. Matheny, for going through this latest iteration of our textbook, and all those members. Might be some other people in the audience that were part of that. So having said that, this is an example of how those HQIMs can be powerful. We have them in, sorry, did you want to add them? Oh, okay. But again, they're not perfect. And so you can see here that our vision for this cross-departmental work is to basically make sure that our curriculum resources meet the needs of all learners, that they're easy, that those supports and the things that are in there to help students are easily accessible for a teacher. And if we find any place that there's a gap, that if a particular HQIM doesn't quite meet the needs, say for enrichment or a multilingual learner, that we're going to have teams to look at those materials and supplement. And so if you go to the next slide, here's how we're framing this work we actually have teams. I just counted. We currently have 4 teams that have launched this work based on each HQIM. So Jen Ralston will have a team of about 10 or 11 people from all of the departments who will work with her to go through the materials to look for these, any of these gaps in this, from any gaps from these 4 frames that need to be worked on. So she has team members from special education, from the multilingual learner team, from advanced academics. She has members of the equity team and members of organizational development. And these groups are charged with finding any of these gaps and supplementing or finding the strengths in there. As you can see, Ms. Matheny's already highlighted some great things. So how do we find those strengths and make sure teachers know how to use them and how to use them easily? Mm-hmm. So they'll engage in a process over many months of identifying these gaps and mitigating for them. They also have the latitude to actually work with teachers in the field. So Ms. Matheny could reach out to English teachers. Debbie Myers would be able to bring in math specialists or math teachers to really make sure that these materials are very user-friendly. They're going to work directly, thank you, Kathy. We're going to work directly with our vendors because the vendors have been very intentional about how they design these materials, and they're experts in their own materials. So they can come in, they'll be doing presentations about, here's how you want to, these are the features in our materials that will help with multilingual learners. These are the features who will help with students who are struggling readers or students with disabilities. For your gifted and talented kids, here are some things that you can see in these materials. But that committee would also look for areas that they think are not top-notch and then supplement. I have some examples of that. So that's the plan, is to really step back and take these HQIMs for as good as they are and make them as good as we want them to be in FCPS. So we thought that's a lot of big picture kind of high-level discussion. Let's bring to the C&I committee a concrete example. And so I asked Jen Ralston, who is our curriculum specialist for elementary language arts, and Michelle Silver, who's one of our teacher specialists for multilingual, looked at the Into reading materials and did what they call a SIOP crosswalk. So I'm going to let Michelle go into the specifics of this work with Jim, but they're going to kind of basically say, here's a concrete example of how we did this work. So I'll turn it over to them to talk. Thank you.
First, I'd like to say that when we evaluated HMH Into Reading, which is where we started this work, we noticed that a lot of these PSYOP practices were embedded within the program. And I'm happy that Secondary ELA has actually chosen a program that will extend that because it is the same vendor.
Yeah,
Yes.
Into reading, and then the middle school version is called Into literature.
Yes. Yeah. And Michelle can speak to the SIOP model and what that is.
Yes, so the SIOP model is our research-based framework that we use with our multilingual learners to help teachers plan and design and deliver lessons that support them, the multilingual learners, in developing both their academic knowledge as well as their English language proficiency. The SIOP framework centers around 30 effective instructional features, which are organized under 8 components that are proven to support that academic and linguistic growth. We use this framework to provide students with opportunities to equitably access the curriculum alongside their English-speaking peers while learning the language and the content together. And we've been doing this for about 10 years at FCPS.
Yeah. And so what they did in the crosswalk is, because we were starting this, because one thing the vendor is not going to do is, because SIOP is proprietary, right? They're not going to go in and call it SIOP, but they clearly knew these these high leverage practices for multilingual learners. So they start putting them in there. Well, the multilingual learner team was like, well, this looks like SIOP, you know, it walks like a duck and talks like a duck. And so the framework, the crosswalk, is a way to make that visible for those teachers. And if you have an example, that would
Yes,
be
I do.
great. Thank you.
So what Jen and I did was Jen was working on it and she brought it to me and said, how do we make this look like something that our teachers can use? And so what we did was we kind of looked through, we have our SIOP model framework. We have a sheet that we use for our teachers that show all the components and those components features and some questions to consider when using those, going through those certain features and those components. And so what we then did was we kind of overlaid them together, and I went through the HMH books and tried to pull out, just kind of like what Liz here did, pulled out some of those things that are already in the text so that teachers knew that they were doing those SIOP strategies and activities in the classroom. When you were talking about gaps, Kevin, I'm going to speak to that. There were some gaps, but also not just gaps, but other ways to kind of elevate and leverage and engage our students. And so what we did was I used some elevation strategies.
Right.
And elevation, if you're not familiar, is our data platform that we use for our multilingual students. We use it to monitor their progress towards the English language proficiency. And it also houses a wealth of resources and SIOP aligned strategies because I was right.
Makes elevation.
Who makes Elevation? Actually, I don't know the parent company.
I don't know the parent.
Elevation that's a software tool. that
Yes,
we
it's a
have.
All right, I
software
didn't know
tool.
if it was, housed within a publisher.
It's a separate vendor that we
Yeah.
have, yeah.
Yeah, and it's what we use when the students get their access scores. It's where we house all of our multilingual learner information, data information, so that we can look at their scores and we can look at their can-do descriptors. What are they able to do with the language levels that they are coming to us
Scores for what?
for access, the WIDA access test that
So
they
all
take.
students who are multilingual learners take an annual assessment, and it's called the Access Assessment. It's part of the MCAP it's part of the MCAP program for the state.
Yes.
Okay.
There's federal requirements associated with that. And so those.
They take it every year.
Every year in
do.
January.
And those scores are part of monitoring a student's progress of acquiring the language. And then at certain thresholds, those scores are looked at, and sometimes then a student is then dismissed from services because they're showing proficiency at the level that's required. And so the month of January in every LEA in the state of Maryland is big access testing, because that is administered to every multilingual student that we have. And right now I think we're at 44,000 plus.
3,901.
Oh, thank you. 3,901. Excellent. So there's the significant assessment that occurs in the month of January. And our Elevation platform is a way for teachers to support those areas. So if a student is scoring very low in a component of the access assessment, there are strategies there in that Elevation platform. They can set language goals for them and monitor them. Both our multilingual learner teachers and our classroom teachers have access to that. It was one of the things that we implemented 2017 maybe as a way to better monitor and better focus on the language acquisition for our multilingual learner students. And so there are districts all across the United States that use Elevation.
And we only use elevation for ML.
Yeah, so it's not an exact analogy, but think of the access or the Elevation is kind of like the online IEP program. So we have an online IEP program to monitor goals and services for students with disabilities, and Elevation kind of serves some of those functions. It's not a complete, perfect analogy, but it is a great way. And all that data, school principals can go in and look at data for their students across their entire building. We can look at that data centrally. So it was a real upgrade in how we were keeping track of information for students. Prior to that, I think it was the yellow folder. The yellow folder. Yeah. Honestly,
High tech.
yeah, we went high tech. Yeah.
There are actually other LEAs in the state that we're looking to Frederick County because we were able to progress monitor our data for MLC so well and accurately. And so now other LEAs are also adopting the use of the Elevation platform. So it's not tied to a publisher or a vendor in terms of curricular materials. And the researchers who have the strategies, the SciOp researchers actually wrote the strategies that are in Elevation. So it's very closely aligned to SciOp as well.
So the shelter instruction observation protocol, who developed that?
Jean
Echevarria
Echevarria and
and
Vogt,
Vogt are the two
yeah.
researchers that researched and developed SciOp. It was originally called sheltered instruction, and the OP came a little bit later, the observation protocol, but it's a way for teachers to support each other in terms of observing instruction and helping each other implement those strategies effectively.
And again, this is for the ML.
Yes, it is for second language acquisition, and so it is an evidence-informed way to teach English and content at the same time.
And some of the strategies are great for all kids. In fact, I would say all strategies. So
Yeah.
So, you know, if it's developed, one of the ones that I have seen is developing this background information. Like, so if we're learning about a topic, I get to build background for you. And so we've been doing SciOp now for quite a few years, and it's very intense in some schools that have a high number of multilingual learners, but all of our multilingual educators have been trained on it. It was a big move that we made many years ago as part of upgrading our services for students who were multilingual back in the day.
Yeah. Thanks for the, we'll dive into that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and so looking at some of those strategies, and you're referencing building background, one thing that reading has is the building that background knowledge, and they have active viewing, get curious videos that students will watch. And so one way to kind of elevate that is to kind of overlay it with what's called double vision video. And it's where you have students watch the video the first time without any sound, and they just watch and kind of take it in. And then the second time they'll watch it with a partner, or they'll watch it again and have an organizer to kind of write down what they see. And so that's just another way to create that engagement, in just, rather than just showing the video, just playing every single time you start a new unit, building that background. This kind of gives them that ability to kind of do some other things. So that's kind of what I implemented into the SciOp piece of kind of just elevating and putting in more engagement
Just move
strategies.
up one notch, right?
Yeah,
And
just
connect
a
it to the work that's already
Not
been done.
necessarily gaps, just kind of
Right.
filling in some spaces, just to kind of make it a little bit more engaging for our multilingual learners and giving them some other opportunities to access the curriculum and the content.
Can I just jump in with a question? So who developed this? You. Okay. Using, let's see, the SciOp model and HMH into reading. So you took the model and applied it to the materials
Yes.
of instruction.
And that's important, because that makes very clear connections for our teachers. You know, one of the challenges, I think, in teaching is you're working in an environment that is fast-paced, stuff's always happening. And so how can we raise up to teachers in the easiest way possible what's important for them to do in the classroom? These materials are very rich. There's a lot there. And I think when we first implement these materials, it's a little overwhelming for teachers because there is a lot. And so what we spend a lot of time is helping them determine importance. This is the most important part of what you need to do. This is how you're going to focus on students who are multilingual learners, or whatever that differentiation is from an equity perspective that needs to occur. And so these 4 teams are going to get to concrete examples like the one you see here. And I'll give another example. When we implemented Into Reading, because that was the first HQIM that we had adopted, Dr. Reinhardt in our advanced academics had looked over the enrichment items that were in Into Reading, and she really felt that they were not at the level of enrichment that we expect in Frederick County. And so she and a team basically went in and created supplemental enrichment activities, made sure that the elementary advanced academics teacher specialists knew how to highlight this for classroom teachers who had students who were identified as gifted and talented. So that's another example. So we're going to be looking across all of our HQIMs for our advanced learners, and what are the opportunities we need to provide to them that maybe aren't in these materials at the level that we would like to see. So these concrete examples are what we're trying to get to by launching these 4 groups to look at those 4 frames that we mentioned.
What is really a
Realia is when you bring in real items to kind of share with the
Yeah.
students. Realia. Mhm.
Sounds like
Yeah.
Ms. Johnson wants to go see PSYOP in action.
Come on over.
Give me an example.
Of Realia?
Realia, yeah. I don't, if you're teaching a lesson, let's say you're reading a story about, someone was reading a story about the Wild West and they brought in some items that they had because they're Wild West fanatics, I guess, yeah, kind of things. But they brought in things to kind of share with the students, to kind of give them some examples of some of the vocabulary that might be used, students might not know. When we're talking about younger students, I've done popcorn before, when the story was talking about an air popper and the students have no idea what that might be. So
Right.
you bring one in and you share with them. So,
And hopefully get these involved.
and show them how it works and they get really excited. So,
Yeah, we discourage teachers from bringing in large predator animals.
Yeah.
That's not the kind of reality we want.
no, they're
And some of that can come in pictures, but some of it can actually be artifacts.
physical, yes.
I think one of the things that also does in the classroom is it gives students something to center their conversation with. You can sustain and work on building that language because there's things there. Kids love to see stuff. They love to have hands-on. So a very effective strategy. All right. So so just in conclusion, Ms. Johnson, this is work that will be ongoing for these new materials, as well as work that will be undertaken regardless of the HQIM that we bring on board. After we get through English language arts and mathematics, which we think we're in good position for that, the HQM conversation will switch to science and social studies. The state's a little bit, their science and social studies work is a little bit further behind. We also want to look at high school ELA as well. So we're very excited. And I think it's important for you as a board member to know that we have a KPI associated with, for instance, middle school ELA. And we are still not where we need to be with student achievement there. About half of our middle school students are meeting the standard in the post-COVID environment. And we think this is an important strategy, implementing HQIMs to raise that number quickly over the next couple of years.
Wow. How do I get a copy of this?
You can have that one. Yeah.
I already took
We can also send you, we can send you the digital.
pictures of it's the first time I've seen like an instructor version of a book that actually describes the aha moment. Like I've been teaching 28 years now, and you talk about it, but you never see it actually in the materials. So,
And that's why I think
all of these
we moved
different.
away from calling them textbooks to these high quality instructional
Yeah.
materials, right?
Mhm.
Because it is so much more than what you'd have seen in a teacher guide even 15 years ago.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
I don't see anything like this. So, in my world, there's a big push towards like open source materials. So we write a lot of our own. It's nothing like this, pace and support for early career teachers.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for this. I almost wish there was some way I could ensure the rest of the board sees this because it's important. It's very super enlightening for me, and I learned a new word. So
Yeah.
thank you for my education.
I'll certainly share your comment with the superintendent that if this is something that the board has a high interest in, I'm sure the team would be happy. It won't be me coming back to present, but I'm sure somebody will come up and share this presentation. I do think this is the heart of the work that we do in schools.
It is.
And it's the fact that we're not just teaching, we're teaching all kids and striving to do that and striving to make sure teachers have those tools. Is an important distinction in teaching now than maybe what it was 20 years ago. Certainly when I started. Much more sophisticated practice now than what it's been in the past.
I'm gonna have to up my own game, So this is
We start bringing
I
reality of the
don't, I
board
don't see
meetings.
this. I don't ever get to see this.
Yeah. I think that's
So
a
it's-
great point, yeah.
Good to, it's great to see because you just assume what you do is what everybody does.
Yeah.
And this is really good. And I remember, it is great to see the rubric for evaluating textbooks because Ms. Rich will tell you someone had sent a complaint about a textbook that, you know, was lacking, the textbook set reading materials lacking diversity in its imagery. And, you know, the cart, we took the cart from down here, went up into the boardroom, gathered us and looked, you know,
Yeah.
page after page. And it's like, you know, now that I've seen the rubric, it's like showing, is this supportive of a culturally responsive instructional material? It makes me feel like I'll never have to do that again, you know, for textbooks that we might, or learning material we might be improving. So, so yeah, I found this super, super beneficial.
Okay.
And somehow, I mean, I would love to see the rest of the board actually see this. I will tell you, when we look at budget items, and oh, well, you know, HQIM, let's cut there, you know.
Sure.
And so, but seeing this, and this is at the core of what we do, it puts it so close into like, we really can't, this is core to what we do.
Yeah.
So, I think it would help protect the investment that we're making in this area.
Those materials right there are designed to help 10,000 learners. About how many middle school kids we have. So it's a broad impact, you know, and
So this will go for everybody then, because this
Yes.
is new.
Yes.
This is like for the adoption for
Yes.
the middle school.
and then those materials are also.
When are they coming?
This summer.
So my son will be, or he's a rising seventh grader.
That will be the teacher's edition for his teacher.
Okay.
So you
Hopefully
should
the
see-
student edition will be not as heavy.
No, the student edition is a
It looks like a
consumable.
weapon.
So one of the things that our teachers are really excited about is the student edition. You can have a robust experience with just the teacher's edition and the consumable. No technology required.
Okay.
And so the consumable, it's pretty thick, but it's not hardbound, it's softbound.
Okay.
It's not the
So,
heavy
but-
paper.
Yeah, but it should be an artifact of learning for the whole year.
Well, how can is there a copy of the student edition so that I could look at, like, to just
Yeah.
borrow,
Yeah.
to just see in
Yeah, we
relation
could,
to?
have one delivered to the board office upstairs,
Yeah,
or do you
I
want
mean-
us to get it for you today? We could
No,
probably.
no, but I would love to, now that I've seen some of what's in here, I'd love to
Give you a
see
copy
what, you
tonight
know, like
at the
the
board meeting.
student experience with
You have a
those.
student copy here? Yeah, we can get you a copy for tonight.
Oh, you know,
Well, I mean,
just-
it's upstairs, right?
I would just like to be able to see what the student view of that would be, because there's always like the instructor view and then the student view, and I would personally like to see, now that I've had a chance to look at just these few pages. This is great. Thank you. I mean,
Yeah,
this is,
absolutely.
I asked all my questions as we went through this. I mean, other than rolling out and making sure that because we're only going to be good as good as the implementation. So is the rollout plan robust? And, you know, is there enough time to help ensure that our teachers are prepared to deliver this? Because
I think-
that's the devil's in the details, and that's, can you address that?
And I've said that to the committee before, our most precious resource in public education is teacher time.
Yeah.
Everybody wants it for all manner of purposes, monitoring student achievement, professional learning. Ms. Matheny's already started working with, again, literacy specialists who have been orienting teachers to the materials. If the budget is approved as is and we can move forward, we're still making some final decisions on the implementation approach. But it would include professional learning options over the summer, where we say, if you'd like to attend the training, and those have actually been very well attended across all of our HQIMs. I think, Debbie, when we did it for elementary, I think we had 85% of teachers, maybe, or something like that.
Over the summer, we had close to between 85 and 90% of our grade 3 to 5 teachers attended a 3-hour session. And we are in the midst of it right now. We had our first day yesterday. And
For K
all-
through 2.
For K to 2, and all went swimmingly well. And again, we're looking at registration of about 450 teachers between an early June day and a July day. And if I might add, there's one benefactor that we have not spoken to with regards to HQIM. Certainly the most focused benefactor is our student in the seat. These HQIM materials, after working with teachers and our specialist staff for a year, another benefactor is a classroom teacher. Because prior to HQIM, teachers had to source their own work in a way that did not necessarily bring consistency across buildings, nor access to all children. And so honestly, I'm a goosebump kind of person when I talk about this, because initially I was a bit of a skeptic, but oh my goodness, the benefit for not only students, but for teachers, and as Dr. Cuppett spoke, about 33% of our teachers are early career. And in that 33% of early career teachers, while we have mandates for the number of credits inside of English language arts, our teachers come out of teacher training with 1 or 2 math methods class, and they are not yet prepared. So the beauty of what you see in this manual is not only benefiting kids, but benefiting teachers, providing professional learning to teachers, all the accompanying asynchronous opportunities that teachers have. I'm sorry. It is a passion.
Right.
This is my work, and I know it's similar for Stacy. This is a breath for teachers and access for children, and it doesn't get better than that. So
Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate that.
Sure.
And I see that Stacy's concurring. She's been implementing Reveal Math now in middle school and high school, and I think it also did excellent work onboarding math specialists early, making sure teachers were oriented, summer opportunities, training in August, revisiting in January, and doing some early career. We have that October early career teacher day. Making sure that they have the resources that they need, and then really equipping their specialists, right, to make sure that they can answer questions on a day-to-day basis in the schools. We would always love to have more professional learning time, but I think the way the specialists have laid it out with the curriculum directors, it's an effective way to support teachers. And knowing that some teachers are going to need more help than others. That's just simply the way of it. And that's where I think the school-based specialist really comes into play.
Well, and I know this is about the students, and you mentioned the supports for the teachers, but there's really an economic impact to that too, because we lose a number of teachers after the first 3 years. If they're feeling the support, look at all the heads nodding now. If they feel the support, then maybe if they're not getting compensated to the rate that we wish we could, but if you feel like you're coming to do your work and you're getting the support, that makes all the difference in the world to a lot of people. So, and ultimately that will, I know it sounds transactional, but it'll save the system a lot of money, because every time, we turn over staff, we have to bring on new staff and train. So it really, the impact is larger than just like right there. It has a profound impact on the function of the entire system.
Well, and let me add too, as someone who's been a principal in several schools, when you aren't turning over teachers, not only do you have to not worry about retraining, but your overall average years of experience among your faculty increases. And that really makes a difference for students. When you get, I always said that I love brand new teachers. I've hired plenty of them, but if I had the option to bring somebody in that had 3 or 4 years experience, maybe came in from another district, you knew there was a value add for that for kids, there was a value add for families, and many times it was a value add for the teams that they were joining. I think the other thing that you talked about, this kind of intangible of I feel supported, that's certainly true in secondary ELA, and it's certainly true in secondary mathematics. But remember, for the elementary teacher, they are teaching 4 content areas. And so to have more expedient planning for instruction frees up time to monitor students and provide additional supports across multiple content areas. And I was an elementary principal. I'm a little bit biased, but those classroom teachers have a huge requirement for delivering content because of the number. Not only do they have science and social studies, but they also have some health requirements as well.
Mhm.
So if we can pave that road as smoothly for teachers in advance in their first couple of years of your career, I think you retain more and increase that average years of experience in each of the schools. So it's all part of for lack of a better term, a wraparound approach to supporting teachers. And again, what the specialists I think are doing well is working across these departments to really highlight these things for teachers so they know where the high leverage stuff is in a very complex but supportive set of materials. I mean, that you look at that teacher manual, you're just, wow, this is really, really well thought out, well designed. And that's what the vendors are bringing to the table when they hire their own subject matter experts. They bring in their own multilingual experts. They bring in people who are content experts and working with students with disability or gifted learners. That's all part of their design team when they put these together.
Mhm.
And that's why a thorough evaluation and then this post-adoption work is critical to meeting the needs of all learners. Do you have any other questions?
We need to make sure that the rest of the board sees this, and even how we can communicate this to our parents.
A lot of the HUIs do come with family engagement resources. It's part of the, I think it's just a modern expectation that schools have. And so there are family community engagement resources that we have there as well.
I think it would be useful to somehow make sure that everybody knows what this means. Just even in like the weekly, whatever, s'mores newsletter, or just to somehow, we need to ensure that our community knows what we're putting in the school.
Well, they definitely, I do think we hear feedback from the community when the kid brings their book home and they see what's available there. I mean, that's often how families even understand what's happening in the academic program is the stuff that a kid brings home. So they have that, and I think there's digital access as well. So there's some awareness there, but I do like more and more of these materials are offering family engagement strategies beyond having a literacy night or a math night, which are all very important, but they tend to be one shot within the year. And so what are the engagement strategies throughout the year? And I will tell our specialists prior to the HQIM had some very high quality engagement materials. I know that's just part of what we think and what we value. Parents and caregivers are partners in the educational process. So yeah, certainly highlighting more and more and engaging families is very important.
Wow, well, that was awesome. Thank you.
Anything else?
I just want to thank you for
Yeah.
all you do.
Thank you all for your work and thanks everybody for being here. We appreciate it. So you guys are free to run the planet. We're gonna do a couple procedural things and then we'll wrap up. I didn't know if you held on approving the minutes because you're the only one here and you want to move that to the next meeting, or do you want to go ahead and approve the minutes? You yourself and I.
I think we can approve the minutes.
Okay, great. All right. And then I'll point out the schedule to
Can I keep this
you.
rubric too? I guess it's this paper, right?
Yeah, you can have that. So our last item, Ms. Johnson, is just the schedule. Again, we always just give you a draft schedule for the year. Depending on the interest of the committee, sometimes these topics move around or change, or sometimes there's new information that we need to provide you around instructional programming. So you will get updates on the implementation of HQIMs when the content areas come in, and you can see that all content areas rotate through in a given year. We do have a new update. It looks like in February, you're going to hear about Frederick County Association of Student Councils. That's just a information update. So if the committee itself has topics of interest, letting us know, and we can get the staff together to add something or move the schedule around as needed. But that is the draft calendar for next year.
Okay. I think it would, the committee would work, the board members on the CNI committee would need to consult with each other to check to make sure that there's nothing. I don't have Anything else? Where does like library materials fall
It's under media services, so that would be an April 9 date.
in?
So media is the update there.
So that's coming up.
Yeah, and I kind of, I think media services update was pretty late in the year of this year. But I also know there's a lot of policy and regulation work being done right
That's
now
why
under
I'm-
media.
That's why I'm wondering if, like,
Yeah,
if it wouldn't make sense to move it up. And that would be, my only comment would be things that I know that are on the radar of the board. And, with respect to potential policies under review, can we ensure that anything related to curriculum can
sure.
kind of.
Yeah.
Can you like work with whoever? Because I'm not on the policy committee, so I'm not sure where we're at in terms of, I mean, I can go look
Yeah.
at what things are coming up, but if we can
So,
internally pay
I believe
attention.
we're touching on media again at the policy committee at the end of this month.
Okay.
And then, so I think one thing you could get from a media update, if it's a little bit into the year, is how did the policy and regulation implementation go?
Right.
Right, that, so we've done
All
the
right,
thinking,
so,
and then how is this translated into training for media specialists? How's it maybe adjusted or change selection of materials? When all that, I think it would be good to have that as part of the update in the program. Once those policy and regulatory things are decided, and then you can hear directly from the field about like how does this happen, right? How does policy manifest itself?
Mhm.
Sound fair?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's two ways of looking at that.
Yeah.
So, and I think it makes some very salient points.
Anything else for the good of the group?
No, thank you. Again, sorry about not knowing that they emailed yesterday, but I was in FCC meetings all day. They went to the county council, so
Good times.
went to bed.
Yeah, you gotta get that sleep in, Michelle. All right,
So,
we adjourn?
So, yeah, boom.
There you go,
Here,
thank you.
we're done.